I am an LA native, so born and raised here in Los Angeles. I live in the San Fernando Valley, if you're familiar, in Woodland Hills. There's a lot going on in this neighborhood. I don't know if you're like familiar with LA, but like the Rams just moved here, and it's crazy. I've lived here my whole life, and it's now getting this sort of like insane growth. But anyways, that's beside the point. But yeah, born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to USC. I'm currently 28, but graduated from college maybe like I want to say like seven-ish years ago. Studied real estate in college, and I met my current co-founder in high school. So I think you may have spoken to or met Cher before, but yeah, we met in high school and have always been like very interested in this sense of like entrepreneurship. Like I noticed the most successful free like people tend to be the ones that have started their own companies, founders, etc. And then I also grew up super into like I was on Facebook as like a fifth grader. I was on AIM Messenger when I was, in like around that time too, like fourth, fifth grade. I was playing a lot of RuneScape. And really like when I got a computer, I guess in like sixth grade, fifth grade, is when I really went super deep into the internet. And that was at the time when like people were transitioning from like MySpace to Facebook. I have older brothers, so they were kind of putting me on. And yeah, I mean, I guess my interest in like the internet and like becoming an internet native started around that time. And as I kind of grew a little bit older, my oldest brother is actually the first person that showed me Bitcoin or told me about Bitcoin. Shout out Bitcoin for hitting 100K yesterday. Um, but that was my first like kind of like exposure or like awareness of crypto. I must have been like, I don't know, like 16 or 17, like 11-ish years ago. I wish I, threw all my money into it at the time. Be a completely different situation right now. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like my general background, like starting point in life. Like grew up over here in LA, have been around like the celebrity kind of world. I feel like it's just inevitable when you live in LA. You come across like influencers and celebrities and musicians and just culture kind of in the know. So definitely have always been interested in that side of things as well, like culture, entertainment, media. And after or like in college, started kind of more intimately like trading coins. I was using fuck, what was it called? Bittrex. That was my platform that I would trade on back in the day, and started trading. Did some like short term trades. Still had no idea like what this actually was. I was just trying to make some money as a college student. And ended up did making a little bit of money on like swing trading these random coins. And after college, started working at Pepsi. So kind of did like a 180. Wasn't really interested in going down like the real estate finance route, which is what I was set up for. It just seemed like not as fun to like traditional. I wanted to do something that was like more risky and potentially like get greater returns, have that like freedom, have that agency over my life. And got in a very roundabout way connected with someone high up at Pepsi on their marketing team, and actually was able to get hired there with Cher, who is now my co-founder. And so we both got hired under Pepsi's like corporate marketing team. They don't even have an office in LA. This one guy just happened to live in LA, so we kind of worked under him. And at a really early age, got this like freedom to ideate on marketing campaigns that Pepsi could be doing. And so this is like around like 8 years ago, like right around the if you're familiar with like the Kendall Jenner controversy that happened with Pepsi back in the day. Um, but but
What was that? I'm not familiar.
yeah, Pepsi basically just made this commercial where like the overall like message was that a can of Pepsi can like basically like solve all problems, including like racism. And that was like what was implied. And it was just like a controversial thing that Kendall Jenner like there was a big like riot going on in this ad, and she like walks in and just like gives everyone a Pepsi, and like everything calms down. It was the whole like
Huh.
thing. And that's like when I came into Pepsi, because Pepsi was getting a lot of flack for that like campaign. And yeah, and it was
They're
also
like,
at a
they're
time.
like, all right, this is not the move. So you got
Yeah,
anything fresh for us?
yeah, basically they're like, hey, we need to stop taking marketing ideas from, you know, like MBAs, and we need to start asking like some college kids and like what they think. And so a lot of that early work was focused on getting Pepsi kind of more natively, and Pepsi brands more natively into like streams of like gamers. Twitch was obviously very like not as popular as it is today, and like live streaming and live streaming your gaming is not as popular as it wasn't as popular as it is today. But we kind of doubled down and really focused on like marketing campaigns as far as like product placement in streamer content and gamer content. That was kind of like the gist of what I was focusing on. So I was doing a lot of like list making and reaching out to influencers and getting product in their hand, and you know, dealing with their management, finding their fees and stuff like that. So early on had a lot of like flexibility on like the creative side of how you market these like giant Pepsi brand products. And then also actually like operationally, how do you get you know, product into the hands of influencers and make sure that like they're actually gonna, you know, make that content and then it performs back. What I learned is Pepsi at the time, I mean, like they have very loose guidelines on like what's success. And so a lot of times success to them was just like impressions. And it's really easy to just get a bunch of impressions if you just work with people who have a lot of followers. Um, but that it didn't convert. Like people were not really converting on these. There was no way to actually even measure if like these product placements were converting. Like we had no real idea. Like you can do, you know, like a regional analysis and be like, you know, is this area buying more because this guy posted? But there wasn't really like the throughput, because no one's buying Pepsi like through a conversion link on their content. Like people buy it, you know, those products when they go shopping and stuff. But in any case, yeah. So spent a lot of time in the Pepsi world, and then TikTok was starting to take off. I think at that time it recently switched from being Musically to TikTok. Like they rebranded, and basically just noticed that like videos on TikTok when they get posted would get an insanely high amount of views compared to like YouTube or Instagram. And there's many reasons for that at the time, but basically got really interested in TikTok to the point where I left Pepsi to join a early studio agency kind of company that later became known as Flight House. And basically what I was doing there was similar to what I was doing for Pepsi, but doing it more for brands broadly, and helping brands create content and collaborate with like influencers or content creators specifically on TikTok. And so that was like 2020, like maybe like 4 months before COVID, made that switch. And obviously during COVID, TikTok went insane, became very popular, and the trends that kind of took over the app, a lot of them we were kind of behind the scenes fueling them or setting them up. Like you know, a lot of, I don't know if you're familiar, but a lot of record labels were running campaigns on the songs of their artists and turning trends, using trends as a way to like promote music. So
Hmm.
like really famous like early ones is there's that Roddy Rich song where the trend was to like wipe the window, and like there was a transition like affiliated with it. Like Doja Cat had a lot of songs that went viral on TikTok with dances and trends. And so we were basically like creating, coming up with ideas and executing on like the influencers to make viral audios or viral like campaigns around content. So was doing that, and this all is going to lead to the crypto URL stuff. Um, but and feel free if you have any like questions along the way, because I'm just kind of like rambling. But yeah, I was doing that from like 2020 up until like 20. Well, I guess at that time also what was happening was I was kind of like silent on the crypto stuff, wasn't really like doing much. I had the phase where I was trading in college and I like, had some, long-term holds and stuff like that, but wasn't really building in crypto at all at the time. Was just kind of like passively like observing, keeping up with the market. And then the NBA was pushing Top Shot. This is like
Mm,
2020 when I really became when I noticed it, and I started seeing people on Twitter posting Top Shots and Top Shot as a whole product, kind of proving that there is going to be like corporate use for this blockchain stuff, and it might not be just boring like finance. It might actually be like the NBA selling collectibles. And that was the first time that like it kind of clicked for me, specifically with NFTs, that there is actually like potential for this to be used by like mass audience. Because up until that point, like I had never seen like a big brand, especially as big as like the NBA, doing anything as far as like relating to crypto, unless it was in the like finance kind of lens. And so that was interesting, where culture and like blockchain were kind of coming together in a unique way, in a product that was like bundled up for people to use, like common consumers. And I guess what happened after that, man. And then shortly after that, so notice that the NBA was doing it. That was given like my status. I was like trying to help brands market to consumers. Saw that the NBA was doing this as a way to like engage with consumers. It was interesting, and basically started trying to understand like how a brand could another brand could make use of NFTs or blockchain in a creative way, like a consumer facing brand. And in pursuit of doing that, I was doing all this with Cher, and we were kind of just ideating. In pursuit of that, I think Cher reached out to the co-founder of OpenSea at the time, and OpenSea was still like pretty early, like it didn't have that much traffic relative to what it is today. And so the founder of OpenSea, Alex, actually responded to Cher and was like, "Hey, I'll give you like a crash course on NFTs. Let's get on a call." And so he just casually got on a call and kind of explained like NFTs and how all this stuff kind of works. And then Cher translated that information to me after the call. And then we were kind of like, all right, our goal is let's make an NFT collection with some sort of like brand, because that's like our combining our strengths and connections. We ended up creating a dynamic NFT with a basketball player, LaMelo Ball, just through connections, through working in like the entertainment world. Pitched Melo on this idea that we'll create an NFT collection that is updating based off of your stats, like incorporating like a live data feed into the NFT interface. The iframe itself will actually, the iframe is the art, the iframe will update. So we created this relatively quickly. Melo's team was down to try it out. It ended up being a pretty successful like early NFT collection. And it like validated this idea that like maybe we should really focus on Web3 and focus on this blockchain stuff, because like it's breaking out of like this sphere of just being a super like low key cult thing, and it's becoming actually mainstream. It's going to be used mainstream in like a variety of ways, and it just was super exciting. So Cher and I left Flight House, and we started a company called Playground, with the focus of just basically trying to create different Web3 products and projects. And there's going to be a lot of experimentation, and we're going to, risk not making any money for a while, and we'll just kind of like figure this out. And so that's what we've been doing for the past like 3 years. And that's kind of like when the playground kind of journey began. At the time, it was just me and Cher. Now we have a team of like five. We have a third co-founder, Alec, as well, who joined maybe like a couple, like three or four, like three, yeah, a couple months after we made the LaMelo collection. And yeah, we've just been experimenting and grinding and just trying different ideas out for a little while now. Have made, we were pretty early with like frames. When frames came out, we created I think it was a Super Bowl frame, where you can predict what like the outcome of the Super Bowl is going to be. We made like a bot pretty early on where, if you remember, Far Castles was kind of like
Mhm.
popping off. And so we made like our own version of that where it's like a bot where you attack people instead of a castle. So we've had a lot of ideas and have tried a bunch of things and have learned along the way. And yeah, let me take a sip of water.
Yeah, while you're grabbing some water, um, first of all, thanks for sharing the story. But I'm curious, it seems like the latest experiment, we haven't really touched on yet,
Yeah,
is URLs.
yeah.
URLs dot fun, right? Or URLs
URLs dot art.
dot art. That's what I thought. I thought it was
Yeah,
art, but I was like, you don't usually see the domains with the art. So
yeah,
URLs dot art. So how did you come to this like latest idea? It's like it seems pretty,
yeah. It's pretty straightforward.
versus these other projects you've done. Like they're quite specific. Like you've got the LaMelo Ball with the live stats. You've got a take on Far Castles. You've got a Super Bowl event. But URLs dot art is like extremely general purpose, and I think in a pretty cool way. So curious how you like sort of came up with that idea.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we obviously like have made a bunch of agency kind of things, built stuff for big brands, but you're very limited when you do that. Like you can't really promote it. There's a lot of restrictions, a lot of red tape. URLs.art is our first kind of like product that is not affiliated with any brand or any entity. It's just us creating something that we want to see exist. And really like the core like principle of it, that inspired it is the fact that right now, the way that we interact with the internet is through URLs. Like I joined this Zoom meeting through a URL. I am going to, see a bunch of information from a bunch of different websites and a bunch of different apps. And everything pretty much has a URL affiliated with it currently in Web 2. And we also saw this convergence of like people creating meme coins very, very quickly and instantly on things like Pump.fun, and Clinker now and WoW. These like various platforms that let you immediately create a token. And it's pretty insane seeing like the activity. I think Pump.fun did like $4 billion in volume in the past 14 days, like some crazy number like that. And so combining that principle with everything has a URL, and the fact that there is like this really interesting interest of people wanting to create coins and like monetize on the fact that coins are growing. So we kind of combine those two ideas where you can take any URL from anywhere on the internet. Every URL has some kind of metadata or open graph data, so that you don't even actually have to provide an image or a title or anything. You can actually just take something that exists on the internet already, turn it into a token, and then there's a lot that we haven't even shown on the front end yet. Like we're kind of like building this in real time. But the setup does actually account for who created that piece of content or that thing on the internet. So for instance, if I pasted a YouTube link and that YouTube link ends up gaining traction as a URL token and people are trading it, there are like fees that are being pulled off and portioned for the person who curated that link. So the actual guy who like made the token, and then the person who created that content. So like if I take a Mr. Beast YouTube video, for example, paste it in URLs, and that token ends up, generating millions of dollars in transaction volume. There is a portion set out and carved out for YouTube, for the curator, for Mr. Beast himself. And the idea is like we're calling it an attention market. And the idea is that content or pieces of like websites and stuff like that on the internet all gain attention, and attention should be connected to the value. Like if you actually care about something, this Mr. Beast video, then you will be willing to actually invest in that Mr. Beast video because you are essentially early, or you have some belief that this video is going to grow in attention or relevancy over the next, like, 10 years. I think one of the first things that I like put in as an example on our site once we had it live on mainnet, I put in like the first YouTube video. And so theoretically, you can imagine a world where like the first YouTube video had a token affiliated with it and it was recognized as such. That video might have a lot of like value in the sense of like market cap value and transaction volume value over time, just because it's like very significant and relevant. So it's totally an experiment, but that's kind of like the thinking and like why we put this together. And then I think another angle of it is like I have a lot of friends that are not in the crypto space, and they don't really like, still, even though like things are getting easier, like they still feel like most crypto products or crypto apps are like complicated and like they don't understand it. And so URLs are a very straightforward like thing. Like everyone pretty much understands what a link is. And everyone, and being able to create a token off of any link just kind of lowers the barrier for I guess like the curation. And yeah, and so we're focusing on making this like a friendly app for anyone, even those, especially those who are not crypto native. So like I know Coinbase and Privy both recently added some kind of support for like Apple Pay. Like we want to add that in pretty soon to let people transact like how they natively would on tokens. But yeah, there's I don't know if you have any like questions around that. Again, I know I just kind of rambled, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of like where you guys are coming at it from. And I think it is interesting. Like the URLs are, I mean, like, so one of the projects I've been working on over the last several months is this project called Base Colors, where basically every color on the internet has a one of one token. And so similarly, it's like this thing that already exists that is inherently a part of everything that you're doing in the digital world. And so like, colors basically based on the, hex code and like the RGB color model, which is pretty universally adopted. It's just like that is the universe of digital colors, unlike, the physical universe of digital colors, which would be like less objectively definable, or at least like less of a universal system for that, and like a finite number of them and whatever. And so with URLs, I feel similarly, like to your point, if you try to come up with like the thing that is like the most objectively available for everything that you will do in the digital world, like at this point, interacting with anything through a browser is going to have a URL, and you could tokenize that. And one thing I didn't realize was like the stuff that you said that like isn't really part of the UX yet, or at least wasn't when I saw you guys
Yeah.
launch around like these fee splits with not only the person who posted the Mr. Beast video on YouTube, or not posted, but like turned it into a token, but also YouTube and also Mr. Beast. That seems like it would be like a really hard thing to implement. Is there like any automated way of doing that and like deciding, in this case, how much of this goes to YouTube versus how much goes to Mr. Beast? And then in another case, like let's say it's like a Substack, essay or newsletter or whatever, like how much of it goes to Substack versus how much of it goes to the creator? Like, is that all algorithmic and automatic, or are you having to like sort of manually make decisions in various cases and like sort of build out different models? Like this is going to be the splits for YouTube videos. This is going to be the splits for, someone's personal blog. Like there is no split because it's just them or whatever. Like, is that like easier than it would seem, or is it as hard as I'm sort of making it like it might be?
Yeah, so the way that it's set up currently is without getting into the actual numbers, because we're still figuring out like what the right numbers are, but it's essentially just like standard figures, right? So let's just say that like 20%, for instance, goes to, and these are numbers that we're working on, so it might be different when we actually like
Right.
share it, but like 20% goes to of the fee split goes to the person who curated it. So the person who actually took the time to say, I think this URL has a purpose of being on chain. I think this is worthy of having a token affiliated with it. So that person is who we refer to as the curator. And let's say
Mhm.
that person curates a YouTube video. Well, right now we don't actually have a way to communicate with like Mr. Beast directly, but we do know that like YouTube as a whole, the platform should receive a portion. And so let's just say that like 80% goes to, in this case, goes to YouTube. And we know what value came from what video. So we can actually like pinpoint that, like there's a thousand YouTube videos on our platform, but we know exactly how much value came from each specific YouTube video. And in the event that YouTube wanted to kind of take claim ownership on those royalties that are sitting there for them, then they would have the ability to claim those royalties, and then they would also have the ability to distribute that as they see fit. So like right now we're kind of letting the website owner, like the URL domain owner, be the one that decides how to actually distribute to the end creator, because that like it's does that make sense? So like
Yeah, yeah. You're basically outsourcing that decision, which it makes sense to have be like sort of bespoke to the situation, and you're outsourcing it to the platform with which you have like the direct contact,
exactly.
which is going to be easier for you to have
Yeah.
like a set amount for in all cases,
Mm,
basically.
Yeah, for now, that's the approach that we're taking. But there's also a world where we're able to authenticate like without even needing to like the goal is to obviously never need to communicate with like the platform or the creator. In like I never want to like DM someone and say, hey, like let me send you some royalties or whatever. Like I want them to be able to come to the site, verify that they in fact do own the Mr. Beast YouTube channel, and then in that scenario, we now don't need YouTube to distribute to Mr. Beast because Mr. Beast himself is authenticated on our site.
Right.
So I think that's like the goal. That's what we're gonna get to. For now, we're just kind of carving out the allocations and we're mapping like, what's coming from where and what fees should be held. And so like all the mapping and stuff is great because it's all just on chain. Like we're putting as much of the like open graph metadata on chain as we can. We're putting the URL itself on chain. And as we kind of grow, I think that there's going to be a world where like creators do come to this platform and they do verify that they are that creator, in fact, on whatever platform they are on. And because of that, they can just claim their royalties because they've proven that they are that person. Obviously, for that to happen, there has to be royalties in the first place, and there has to be, volume that is worthy of them wanting to even come in and authenticate because there's a bag of money just sitting there. So for now, we're just kind of focused on making it easy to create tokens off URLs. We're tracking everything, and we're setting aside like basically like some fee structure, fee splits for different people involved. And yeah, the next kind of like phase is to make all that a little bit more known because we kind of just released this out of nowhere, and then Dan recasted my first cast. And like the platform is totally in like an early stage. Like I think up until yesterday, people who created a token or traded something like on the front end would lose it because the feed is like set up in a way where like only the first like few things show up, and people like there's people who like created tokens that probably had no way to find that token or like revisit it. So there's like just little problems and stuff, but we're addressing those, and there's a profile page now so you can see anything that you interacted with or did. And then next is to like kind of support searching, better sorting, and just like some of those optimizations, as well as a Farcaster frame is coming, and more Farcaster native like tooling and support. So like obviously we're interested in the AI agents. We're trying to figure out where like how to do it in a way that makes sense and is actually like valuable to like our mission or our goal here. So yeah, there's definitely more coming. And it's pretty exciting. Like we have a whole nother product that we haven't released yet that is kind of similar, kind of uses URLs as well as like links as like the source of like content creation. But we kind of shifted and just focused on building this out as like a side project, and now it's kind of, I don't know, we all as a team are having a lot of fun doing it, so we're kind of just focused on URLs.art at the moment.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it sounds like whenever you have a team of, you know, five, obviously you've been working with Sheriff for a long time. The really only advantage you guys have is the ability to be super, you know, dynamic and adaptive and nimble and switch what you're working on, you know, days notice or whatever. And so like you start hitting on something, exploring an idea, it starts working, you're everyone on the team is juiced about it. Like I feel like you should just follow through with it as long as you can, until, you know, if and when that wanes, then it's like, all right, maybe we'll go back to the other thing we were working on. But like you don't have to, you know, there's no one in charge telling you like you got to stick to the mission that you set out on 2 months ago. Like no one even knows about it besides, you know, the five of you, unless it was something that you were sharing about publicly or whatever. And so it's just like, yeah, we've hit on something that feels really interesting to all of us. Like let's just go for
Yeah,
it. And I think like to, you know, I mentioned before we started with the recording, but like this concept of like if you sort of take it to the end game, with like how easy it's become to tokenize things and whatnot, you take it all the way to the end game. I feel like being able to tokenize every URL is a pretty reasonable like outcome, and who knows what the heck that looks like or what the mechanics, you know, ultimately will be that will like prove most successful, or even if it will prove successful. But there are just a lot of interesting dynamics around it with, you know, everything as a URL. The other point that you've mentioned a couple of times that I didn't sort of comment on yet, which is like the automated pulling in of like the metadata, like the open graph is super cool. Like it just takes
yeah,
one more step out of the process that is currently like the process of creating a token becomes so easy, trivially easy with Pumped Out Fun, and now you can just like add a bot on Farcaster, and you know these like
yeah.
all these shortcuts, and it's like how many more can we add? But like one of them is like, you know, you don't even have to, you literally don't have to upload an image anymore. Like just copy
Yeah,
paste the link. So
and I think with that point specifically too, like what I like about the URLs approach is like obviously, you know, creating coins on sites like Pump.fun is obviously like very easy too. The problem that I see with it is, or like, you know, one of the problems is it's very easy to have like 20 versions of the same coin. Like oftentimes I try not to like trade too much, although it's like kind of impossible when you're working in the space. Like, I don't know, there's just like so many coins, like I have to ape into this. But sometimes I'll come across, you know, some coin or some ticker, and I'll go to a site like Pump.fun, or I'll go to like Dexscreen or whatever, and I'll try and find it. And there's like 20 versions, and it's just people like replicating, you know, the same thing or trying to replicate. You know, for instance, like if you go and search for like chill guy on Solana or probably on base too, there's probably like at this point like hundreds of different chill guy tokens and like variations of chill guy. But the I mean the market decides like what becomes the main one. Obviously, like the one with the highest trading volume and market cap is the one that is probably like the real quote unquote chill guy meme coin. But in the world where URLs are kind of like fueling meme coins, or tokens, they're not all meme coins, I guess, but in a world where URLs are the thing, like the source of truth, or like the creation point, you're actually able to validate if a token is the real one by just seeing what URL was used to create it. So, like, you know, for example, the guy that made Chill Guy, I went down a Reddit rabbit hole and actually like found these people on Reddit found the guy who created the meme. He posted that Chill Guy meme. You're familiar with the Chill Guy meme, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that this guy posted the Chill Guy meme over a year ago on Instagram, on his regular Instagram feed. He has nothing to do with crypto, nothing to do with any of that, but he's the original like artist, the guy that created that meme. And he posted it on Instagram, and that is the source, quote unquote, of the chill guy meme. Obviously, it's taken a whole, you know, another like story and narrative of itself. But in a world where the chill guy meme token was created from his Instagram post link, you're able to match it back, and you know all the like variations are just variations, and you can kind of like trace that back. And so I think that that is important. Like as we know right now, it's like super easy. There's a million ways to create tokens. You can literally, I probably have created a new token with Clanker like every day just for fun because I can. And like there's just so much, right? Like there's so much being created, but there has to be a little bit of, I don't know, I guess like quality control, like filtration, like source of truth for these meme coins, right? Like, and so I think being able to restrict each URL token to only have one token per URL, which is something that I don't think we have merged in, but very soon any URL that gets submitted, it can only be created once within the boundaries of obviously our platform. Anyone can do other stuff outside on chain, like you can't control that. But if we're going to kind of be like the source of truth, quote unquote, for these URLs tokens and be like the factory that pumps out these URLs tokens, we're going to restrict so that each URL can only have one token. And so if me and you try to, create the same coin off of the same URL, one of us is going to beat the other to it, and the other one just simply won't be able to make a token off of that URL. And I think that will bring some benefits to like the space. But yeah, like I don't know. I don't. Do you feel the same way? Like there's just like an overwhelming amount of coins, and I think a lot of people have a lot of pleasure in creating them. Like it's fun. It is fun. I have a lot of fun, but they're it's like so open. Like there's just so much that gets created, including like lots of duplicates, lots of variations, which I guess is also part of like crypto culture, like
Right.
the derivatives and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I generally agree that the duplicates issue is kind of odd. And like obviously things have worked despite it. And like one typically emerges as like the one of, even if it's the same sort of like image or ticker or whatever several times, like it has to
Yeah.
get sort of like past the threshold. And then if two get past the threshold, one like beats out the other one or whatever. And like somehow, consensus develops around like which one wins. But it does seem sort of like random and odd. And I do think it's confusing, I guess, for it's not even about like which one wins or who created the winning one. It's like for people who identify a meme that they enjoy, and as these tokens are becoming like more and more of a thing, it's like, oh, I really like that meme. This is my first time seeing it. I'm gonna go see if there's, can I buy that as like a meme coin, and speculate on that, like becoming a more popular meme. And so that's the person who it's really hardest for, because it's like you look it up, it's really early, it doesn't have a coin that's like sort of been established as like the coin for that meme yet, and you're like, man, like if you had seen Chill Guy on, well, if you'd seen the original Instagram, the coin didn't exist yet, but you see it like months before it became, or weeks, I don't know how quickly actually it sort of like emerged to become this like super popular thing, but regardless, like you see it like pretty early and you're like, oh, that could be like a really good meme coin, I'm gonna go buy it. And you search and there's 12 different Chill Guys with like various market caps between
Yeah.
0 and 700,000. Like you don't know which one to get, and then it's like you identified the meme but you didn't get rewarded for identifying it early because you just sort of didn't know which of the 12 to pick, or you picked the wrong one or whatever. So I think it's sort of an interesting kind of counterintuitive move. Like you said, I think there is something that feels like it's like crypto, like everything is sort of like permissionless and
Mhm.
remixable and everything. So it feels like this problem feels like sort of appropriate for crypto. Like it doesn't feel like surprising. And it even seems like it could be something that doesn't need to necessarily get fixed, that it may sort of stay that way for better or worse.
Yeah.
But I think it is an interesting counterintuitive bet to make, where it's like we're going to take this permissionless, fully decentralized space, and we're actually going to say, look, like even though technically you can go and bring a URL on chain like however you want, we are going to be the platform that becomes most widely recognized for that. So we'll sort of like compete at a platform level, but then as a platform, we will say, you know, uh, first person to do it wins, and like no one else can do it after that. And it's somewhat arbitrary, but it's not completely arbitrary because you're just picking who's first. It's not like who gets to, or you could do a different thing, like who gets to whatever threshold first, or whatever sort of you decide to do. But you as a platform are sort of like enforcing this rule within a space that more generally doesn't really have those rules. And I think it's an interesting bet to make, which I think the counterpoint is like, Pump.Fun has worked, and like
Or
there's like basically the successes to date have worked, and that would be the best counter argument to the logic that we're talking about. But I personally would like sort of lean on your side on this, that I do think it's more problematic than beneficial that you have all of these like sort of competing coins for like the same asset. And I didn't think through like the URL as authenticity piece, applying to the creator. That's super cool. The curator is still going to be on like sort of discovery, obviously, but for the the Mr. Beast in the example that we were discussing earlier, like you can't like, I mean, no one would take Mr. Beast thanks because he's Mr. Beast, but like if you have like, if you're like sort of a niche artist and you come up with like this great art, then someone can't just like nab it and coin it before you do, because it's you posted it on the internet first, and that's like verifiable.
yeah.
So I do think that's really cool. I know we've gone a bit over the scheduled time. We didn't hit on like maybe quite as much as would have been fun, but unfortunately I do have to run. But it was really interesting talking about all this, and I'd like to, obviously I'll be following along. Like I think I must have been that first tweet cast that you mentioned that I first saw with like urls.art, and it, like I said, definitely caught my attention. I played around. I went and launched urls.art on urls.art. I don't know if it was like the first one, but it was it's out there, and it might have disappeared and maybe nothing comes of it. But whenever I see a new platform, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go do the thing that this platform seems built for. And so URLs art on URLs art seemed pretty fun. So I'll be excited to see. Like, it sounds like you guys have sort of a lot almost already built out that you just haven't sort of like put out there yet, and then you've got a bunch of other ideas that you guys are working on. So I think it's fundamentally, for all the reasons you discussed, between every site as a URL enables authenticity, URL enables sort of it has content built in that you don't even have to like sort of upload. Like all of these elements, I think, make it a really interesting space to play in. And to my knowledge, you're the only project that I've seen working on it so far. And so with all these things you're going to do to make it Farcaster native and whatnot, like it's really interesting. And obviously we're in a time where, you know, launching tokens is all the rage, and it's, I think, still very much TBD what's going
Yeah,
to emerge as, the top X number of like power law winning models. So we'll be curious to follow along, and I appreciate the time walking through everything.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Excited to see this get published. Yeah, keep up on Warpcast. I'll try to. It's honestly hard. I mean, I know you got to go, but dude, I struggle to like consistently post. Like I don't know. It's like not in my muscle memory. Um,
Yeah, you've got to develop like the groove for it. Like I don't know, it took me like years for Warpcast in particular, not years, but at least a year, I would say, for Warpcast in particular, from like I was already tweeting a decent amount and then sort of booted up on Warpcast by just mirroring, like just cross posting basically. And then that just sort of like went further and further in that direction over the years, like building the grooves in the brain. And then like and now I have to like sort of make an effort to tweet. Like I naturally cast a lot, but I like the tweeting doesn't come naturally anymore, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I think it is important, especially on podcasts, like so many people building so many things. Like you've got to kind of like get the word out a little bit. And obviously the product makes a huge difference, but combination of the two.
Definitely. Well, cool. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for acknowledging what we're building and being interested. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. See where this all goes.